Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the special business meeting for the District of Squamish for Tuesday, December 14th. Pascual, Queesalukmuk, Latskahopmish, Okameo. We're meeting tonight on the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. With two councillors joining us electronically. Welcome, Councillor Stoner and Councillor Pettengill. It's a full house. So thanks for joining us, Councillor Stoner. Motion to adopt the agenda. Moved by Councillor Herford, seconded by Councillor French. Any opposed? Motion carries. We have two delegations this evening. First to appear and in council chambers is Jeff Norman from SORCA. So just up to the podium, the mic will turn on for you, and you've got your 5 minutes.
Okay. So first off, I would like to thank Mayor and Council for the opportunity to speak here this evening on what I have seen has been a very busy day with lots of important topics being discussed. Really appreciate your time. I am Jeff Norman I'm the president of the Squamish Off-Road Cycling Association, otherwise known as SORCA. I noted earlier today that we were talking about the Brennan Park Master Plan as one of the busy things on your agendas. And one of the important facets of that plan was the need, because of our fiscal realities that we're in, is the need for not-for-profits to take up the lead on a number of projects. Well, here today is one of those not-for-profits ready to take the lead. So in 2013, SORCA created in partnership with the district, created the Brennan Park Bike Skills Park. We got a $20,000 contribution from the district. That park is really heavily used, has been heavily used, but in reality, because we weren't able to put a full amount of resources into it, it reached end of life in about 5 to 6 years. So that was really 3 or 4 years ago, and so now it's time for a rebuild. We were lucky enough to receive a grant from the provincial government that's going to go part of the way to creating a rebuild. But we are really concerned that we do not have enough resources and that a rebuild is just going to create the same problem where something comes to end of life in 4 or 5 years. So we have been, in the fall, we created a bit of an RFP and got some responses for the design of the park. And through that process, we realized, what exactly we need to make this happen, make a long-lasting legacy for the town of Squamish. And so we think that we can get this done for about $360,000. The $65,000 grant is going to form a part of that funding. SORCA is going to raise a lot of money and get a lot of in-kind donations. We've already had a lot of success with that through the community, but we do need district support. A little background on these bike skills facilities and how they kind of fit in. They provide a place for young children to learn how to ride bikes. SORCA's primary focus is on the trail system. And we don't run any programs at these types of facilities. We focus on the trails. We have 350 kilometers of trails here in Squamish, and that is a lot for us to handle. But we see this need in the community, and we understand the district's financial position, so we're happy to help out. But we are going to need a little bit of support. Municipalities throughout the province are implementing these types of facilities on their own. A few ones of note: Pemberton is spending upwards of $900,000 on the same facility. That is being driven by staff. It's also taking staff time for operations and maintenance. Chilliwack has just gone through a process where they've built a $500,000 pump track. Langford has created the Geordie Lawn Bike Park, which is about $2.1 million in costs. So this is a really great opportunity for the district. And we can get a facility for a really small investment that is going to rival some of these higher cost ones throughout the province. So I know there's been some discussion about the timing of this request. And I completely understand and respect the district's budgeting process. It is, in reality, we wish we had this request in earlier, but we just didn't have enough information. And if the district is going to rely on not-for-profits to kind of fill the gap where we don't have the finances to build these projects, and you can't provide full funding, we hope that you can be nimble and flexible in accepting this request. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions for Mr. Norman? Councilor Reeves.
Thank you. Jeff, we were wondering, or I was wondering, about phasing it. Would you need the whole 60,000 this year? Could it be part this year, part next year? I'm talking about the district's contribution, and I understand you have pressure to complete from the grant. So a lot of other work would be going on, but is it possible to put parts of it over to separate out parts? Is that a feasible possibility?
We're going to learn more once we've selected the design contractor. There could be some possibilities for phasing, but the lion's share of the work all has to happen at once. When we get these in-kind contributions, the one thing that we've heard is that people are willing to contribute in kind, but they don't want to be coming back and forth a whole bunch of times. So that's one aspect. The other is that we don't want this children's facility to be under construction for 2 years. And kind of that's just not really worth it, because there's going to be some cost in mobilizing and demobilizing as well. So there may be some opportunity for some phasing, but the lion's share and where we really need the district contribution is for the acquisition of materials and the paving, and that's got to happen next summer.
Councilor Pengill.
Yeah, thanks. So one of the things we talked about was sort of lifespans, and I think we saw in the Fields Master Plan, the way it's drawn out now, there'd be a 15-year, give or take, lifespan for this. I think another report mentioned a 20-year lifespan, so I want to confirm that, but it ties to my other question. You mentioned that part of the challenge for the current park is that there just wasn't the resources to maintain it adequately. Here, there's pavement, and it's a more, I guess, expensive facility. Just wondering what the plans are to make sure there's budget to maintain this for the whatever the lifespan is.
Yeah, so I mean, there's two parts there. We see that the lifespan being about 15 years for this, which works and fits in really well with the Brennan Parks Fields Master Plan. We realized that there might be buildings expanded there after 15 years because it's not in the floodplain. As far as maintenance is concerned, pavement is really, that's one of the great thing about it. It's really, there's a lack of maintenance that has to go into it. There's going to be some, some raking, kind of a twice a year raking to cleaning up some of the tree debris. We'll work, we think there might be some efficiencies for the district staff to do some of the raking and debris removal, because they have the skills and basically the equipment to do so. But any of the skilled things, if there are some dirt features, SORCA can take care of that. But the biggest thing is this will be a lot, relatively maintenance free in comparison to the existing facility with, 200 millimeters of rain. What happens to the, pump tracks and any kind of jumps and rollers is they slowly depress down, and you need excavators to come and kind of reshape them. And so that's, we think this is going to be a good solution in that regard.
Any other questions? Okay, not seeing any. Thank you, Mr. Norman. Our next delegation is Amber Pascual. And she'll be joining us electronically. There you are. Go ahead, Amber. You've got 5 minutes.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. Firstly, I just want to say thank you for dedicating your time and attempting to solve so many massive problems in our community. So thank you. You don't have an easy job, that's for sure. I just want to say I just heard the greatest news today, following along with what was happening in your meetings, that you've endorsed the Field and Land Master Plan today, which is what I'm here to speak about. Wow, it's going to make the community really happy to have this endorsed plan so that action can start to unfold. I just want to let you know, I decided to present on Zoom tonight instead of in person, because I cry when I present in person. I get so emotional when I'm talking about things I care so much about. So thank you, Zoom, for letting me do this in a way where I can maintain composure. Anyhow, that's a side note. So I'm just going to read so I stay focused, because I know I'm on the 5 minutes and it panics me. If you know me at all, you know I talk too much. So I'm going to just say all the things that I've been wanting to say for 3 years. So like I said, thank you, Karen. My name's Amber. I'm an educator in West Vancouver schools and have been for 24 years. 7 of those years I've been a vice principal. Currently, I'm still working part-time in West Vancouver schools as a physical literacy specialist. That's working to increase the physical literacy activity skills in all our children and youth in our school district, while supporting the mental health crisis among all of us. I also participate on multiple committees associated with the Sport for Life and the Ministry of Health. I was one of the main writers for a physical literacy in schools program that was just launched in over 22 school districts, one of which is ours, SD48. The main objective is the program is to support school staff to proactively support our children and youth to be as confident and competent with their foundation movement skills in order to be active for life, for the rest of their lives. It's a $3.4 million contract supported by the Ministry of Health, not the Ministry of Education, which is a really interesting approach to supporting schools. Layered into this work, I've volunteered countless hours with local sports teams and created years ago the City Sky Athletics Track and Field Club that continues to served a few hundred children in our community, just because we didn't have a track and field club that supported the athletics. Just recently, I also discovered a need in high schools to develop a grassroots volleyball program to allow children to participate, that it's a sport that's quite inclusive, and it's a late arrival sport. So kids in grade 7, 8, 9 can participate in a new sport that they have zero experience in, which is not, it's just very inclusive and very safe, which is all the things we want is for kids to stay moving and active. Therefore, we created in the last 3 weeks a Squamish Volleyball Club, which has never been before in what I know. We ran a league for 6 weeks with over 50 youth, including a wait list. Just last night, we hosted 84 children for traveling volleyball teams in various ages. And in the new year, we're going to launch a weekly league play. Then we're collaborating with Whistler to develop a youth volleyball league for our corridor. So fun. For the last 3 years, I've been working with the city of Squamish as a community liaison volunteer. Years when Tim Hoskin, when the program, the collaboration with the community started to take effect with the Land and Fields Master Plan, just to ensure it was my passion. We had the highest level of community engagement with all user groups. It was my mission to help speed the process up by organizing meetings, gathering notes, making connections easier for your staff. I just know how hard that is. I'm working on the ground on a daily basis, so I could help with that, and I loved it. And it was ensuring a positive tone with
1 minute,
meetings.
1 minute left.
Oh gosh,
Amber.
okay. I'm telling you all this because I know how deeply connected everyone is to children and youth. So firstly, I just want you to know that the state of mental health and physical literacy skills in our province and our corridor is alarming. 37% of children are physically literate and physically active enough. We've got the COVID effect happening in schools, which is extraordinary. So my wish to you, I'm cutting off a lot of things to make it 1 minute, is to thank you for approving this plan so that these user groups are so keen to, like SORCA just said, to fundraise and apply for grants and work their butts off to ensure we can get these facilities moving and more accessible and more options for more children, more youth, and more families. So I just continued and wanted to speak tonight in order to just know the level of importance and high level of urgency and making sure that this vision and this conversation continues, and ensuring these public-private partnerships can help, and these user groups and volunteer groups can help you by working together instead of against what you're doing. We want to help. That's all. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Pascual? We really appreciate your dedication and your support on this project. It does feel good as a council to have a real estate and facilities master plan that contemplates the rejuvenation of Brennan Park, as well as now Fields and Lands master plan that allows for space allocation, longer term leases, so that people can plan with us to make things happen. So appreciate the state that we're in, and look forward to moving these kinds of things forward with our community. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you. It's exciting. Thanks so much.
All right, Councilor, we're on to item 4A1. For the first ever time, contemplating first 3 readings of our financial plan bylaw before the end of the year. Mr. Russell. Yes, Councilor Rees.
So just as a matter of process, we had an outstanding matter from this morning that was referred till tonight. Just wondering where you intended to talk about that.
We will contemplate all budget related concepts within this discussion.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council, general public. My name is Roland Russell. I'm Senior Financial Analyst for the District of Squamish. I have the honor this evening of presenting Financial Plan Bylaw number 2876, 2021. So I'm going to speak a bit about the process of financial planning and creating the financial plan bylaw. So there are a number of guiding principles that council uses, has directed the administration to use with respect to preparation of the financial plan. We attempt to have a financial plan that is stable and sufficient, that is sustainable and equitable, that is prudent yet flexible, and is efficient and measurable. In addition to that, the financial plan is based on a number of primary drivers. The primary drivers of the financial plan are listed on the left-hand side of your screen, and they include the strategic plan, the operational plan, a number of master plans. This year, special highlight being the real estate and facilities master plan, and also requirements for safety, legislative requirements, and risk management requirements. Those are the items that generally govern what administration brings forward to council and presents as a financial plan and the various components of that plan. Council has gone through a fairly significant and lengthy process to review the financial plan, from a kickoff in September to where we are today, at 3 readings of the financial plan in December. Over the last 3 months, we've looked at all the various aspects and facets of the financial plan. We've had public information session and reviewed the feedback from the public information. And in addition to that, last week, Council gave the first 3 readings to the utilities, rates and fees bylaw. I think that's fees and charges, but I may not have the exact wording there of the bylaw correct. And that allowed us to establish the rates and fees, utility rates and fees that will support the utility funds in 2022. The tax rates that will support the general fund will be set in the spring of 2022 after we receive the final information from BC Assessment, and that will allow us to set the appropriate tax levels to meet the revenue requirements set out in the financial plan that is in front of you today. So with respect to those revenue requirements, the plan that Council has directed administration to bring forward as part of the bylaw has an overall tax-supported revenue requirement of $34,265,000. That value requires an increase in funding from our existing ratepayers of approximately $1.3 million, which equates to 4.1% of the existing tax take on for an individual. Sorry, the existing tax requirements from existing homes. That equates to roughly $91 per individual residence. Sorry. So at this point, we have a question. The question being, get my cursor going correct. We have a question, which is a council resolution. But prior to going to the resolution, we will pause and I will turn it back to the chair, Mayor Elliott, and open the discussion. And please feel free to ask any questions you may wish with respect to the financial plan bylaw that will support the 2022 through 2026 financial plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Council, any questions at this point? Or discussion items? Councillor Herford.
Thank you. This morning, there was a question around the balance of council contingency for the current fiscal. Do we have an answer to that at this point?
I do. I had an answer for it this morning, but it was just some delays in trying to get online. Our records show that council has not assigned any expenses to be charged against their council contingency year to date for 2021. That would leave a contingency amount of $50,000 available.
Follow up? Are you good?
That's a good start for me. I'll turn it over to.
I've got Councillor French, then Councillor Race.
Thanks, Chair. In Schedule B of the staff report, there's a table identifying our revenue sources and the percent locally and the BC average for 2020. And the transfers from other governments line caught my eye. It's 6.2% in the year ahead, and the BC average in 2020 was 9.9%. So a significant difference there. Is this due to transfers related to COVID-19? Can we get your microphone?
You're referring to the Schedule B, and you're referring to transfers from other governments.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, I'm going to suggest that that change is probably related to the COVID grant. I wasn't 100% sure whether that grant would be recognized as 2020 or 2021, since we spent most of our money in 2021. But the grant was received in fiscal 2020, so it would be considered a 2020 revenue.
Okay, thank you. And sources of other revenue in 2022 is at 5.6%, and the BC average in 2020 was 1.4%. So I'm wondering if you could refresh my memory on what other revenue sources are.
In this instance, the other revenue sources would primarily be fees at Brennan Park, and would also include recoveries of charges for, recovery of charges for, sorry, I'm almost thinking it's like incidental charges, recovery of monies that in support of planning, engineering, things like that. In addition to that, oh, and probably the other significant one would be building inspection fees. So combination, probably the two largest would be a combination of building inspection and fees and charges at Brennan Park.
Very good. Chair, I have one more. Under D, revitalization tax exemptions, the table indicates Matthews West Developments will get a 2022 revitalization tax exemption of $74. Is that amount correct? There's not any zeros after that?
The amount is correct. Okay, and I will explain that. The exemption is on the improvements, and currently to date, within the land areas that we're referring to, there are very few improvements. There's only $10,000 worth of assessed improvements showing on our records at this time. Now we anticipate that there are probably a number of improvements that are being assessed and may be assessed in 2021, and certainly more development as it goes on into future years. We fully anticipate that that number will grow, perhaps dramatically.
Right. And that number just struck me as odd. So thanks for the clarification. Thanks, Chair.
To be fair, it struck me as odd too. And I kind of thought I might get this question when I calculated $74.
Thanks, Councilor Russell. Councilor Race.
Thank you. In the discussion we had this morning with respect to the Brennan Park plan, there was a section on the Skills Bike Park, and there was a staff recognition of a request from SORCA, which we also just heard about, for $60,000. And the suggestion from staff at the time was that if we were inclined to approve that, that it be funded from taxation. And I think we asked staff to see if they could provide us with alternatives to taxation, one of which would be contingency, but I was wondering if there were others and if staff could comment on that.
Yeah, I could comment on that. I guess it would depend on when, sorry, phrase that slightly differently. It would depend on when council wished to make the expenditure. If council was anticipating an expenditure in 2022, then administration would ask council to specify a funding source. If council were anticipating making that expenditure in 2021, Okay. And then council could provide a resolution to administration to fund this from contingency, as an example. They could fund it potentially from surpluses found within operations during the current year. You know, there are areas in the current year for which council could provide specific direction that may or may not be taxation. If you were looking at placing this in the budget as a specific project in 22 or 23, then there would be a requirement to find funding. And if it were at the direction of council, administration could review other opportunities that might present funding opportunities that did not involve tax. Needless to say, the farther out into the future, the more time administration would have to assess where they could draw that funding from. Therefore, obviously, be probably easier for us to ascertain an appropriate funding source.
So to be clear, if we chose to do it this calendar year, we don't have to alter the bylaw that's before us right now. And you're saying, I think, that there is sufficient monies in surplus that staff could provide to fund some portion, at least, of that $60,000 this year.
Yes, I think that's accurate. You asked two questions there. One, if it were paid in 2021, then there would be no requirement to change the bylaw before you. Would it be reasonable to say or assess at this point in time during the year, mid-December, that staff anticipate that there will be a surplus in 2021? Yes. I mean, I'm the person that does the reporting, so I think I can say reasonably, with a reasonable level of justification, that the answer to that question will be yes. There will be a surplus this year. So it would be feasible for council to direct this to be paid from surplus. You know, and I guess council could then direct that surplus to be applied to either this year or future years. The recommendation that was in the package of information that was provided to you this morning was that if council wished to proceed with this project, that they direct administration to include it in the 2023 budget, and that was to allow council to maintain the integrity of the budget process, which obviously I support. But yeah, you know, we can find the money from surplus that will be generated this year and use it to fund this project either this year or in future years, if that is council's desire. We would require a resolution to that effect.
So then, before us at the moment is the financial plan, and I don't want to mix the two up. So is it fair to say that we could have a discussion regarding this after we deal with the financial plan?
We can, or you can, before we deal with the motion on the financial plan, we can deal with the motion on this. So, you know, could be a combination of contingency and surplus, whatever.
That was my intent. So I'll move that the district fund the request from the Squamish Off-Road Cycling Association in the amount of $60,000 funded from council contingency and the balance from surplus.
And seconded by Councillor Herford. Any comments? Do you want to speak to it, Councillor Race?
Well, nothing more really than I said this morning and at other times. But I think this for me is a very worthwhile project, certainly. And it is a project that, especially, and I mentioned it last week, deals with little kids and outdoor recreation. And I certainly have a bias towards that. The other attractive thing for me is that this is a highly leveraged project. For the amount of money that we might put in, we are getting a significant community asset of much greater value. And as one of the people that makes decisions on funding, that is always attractive to me. So I think this ticks the box for me in a number of different areas. And it is the kind of thing, I think, when you consider other communities, it is the kind of thing that a municipal government should be contributing to within their community. This is what we're here to do, is to provide facilities like this, or to contribute to them, or to facilitate them in some way for our community. So I have made that resolution on that point.
I've got Councillor Hurford, and then Councillor Anderson, and then Councillor French, and then Pet and Go.
Thank you. I'm speaking in support of the motion. I think all over North America, municipalities are investing in these facilities, and we are a world-class destination for off-road riding, and a destination not just from a tourism standpoint, but from people all over the world want to move here for the mountain biking. And I think that this facility provides, similar to the beginner skate park, this facility provides sort of that nice entry into the sport in the most accessible way that we know how. Also, the return on investment here is huge, as outlined in the presentation we received. So many municipalities are putting millions of dollars into facilities like this, and I know that the output of this expenditure is going to result in a facility that will rival those with a substantially larger budget. I'm also happy with where the funding's coming from. I was having some challenges given my support for the general concept of the project, but not knowing where the funding was going to come from and wanting to maintain the integrity of our budgeting process. But I think this gets us to the right place and sets the right tone for the other user groups as we move into the implementation of the Brennan Park land planning that we just endorsed earlier today. And this is a model that I'd like to see hopefully replicated with other facilities moving forward. So this is a great first step to show that it is what is possible. And I know it will be executed well with a good track record of executed projects from this organization. So happy to support. Thank you.
Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I'll also be supporting the motion. This is a project for youth. We've had another presentation this evening from Amber Pascual regarding youth in our community and their needs. And we have before us a request letter from SORCA, and this reflects impressive skills and savvy in dealing with Municipal Hall. It's an excellent brief, and it did not require much labor on the part of our staff to complement it with information and commentary. So the brief and the initiative itself are to be admired and complimented. However, we also have another letter we've received from the Senior Center Society, and it outlines a request or a need for improvements to the lawn bowling facilities. And they discuss in the letter applying for a $25,000 grant and requesting that we consider funding a balance. There is information missing that we would desire in the Senior Center Society letter. However, I raise it because we need to be mindful of the landscape of needs and projects and community groups out there with quite varied circumstances relative to SORCA in delivering proposals to Municipal Hall. Finally, we have a project that we will be deliberating in the new year, Real Estate and Facilities Master Plan Public Engagement Exercise. This will also involve a variety of age groups and constituencies as stakeholders in the community. So I think that my main comment here is we need to be mindful of the whole landscape in considering this individual initiative and request from SORCA, but I'm happy to support this at the present time according to the present proposal.
Councillor French.
Thank you, Mayor. As one of the people who helped create SORCA back in the early 1990s, it's an organization I fully support. And I'm also a councillor committed to keeping municipal taxation rates as low as possible. So for me, $60,000 is a significant amount of money that could have a potential noticeable impact on property taxation if it's generated that way. So I'm really happy that we found a way to put $60,000 towards this project without going through the residential property taxation route, because this is a project, as we've heard, that will leverage this $60,000 to well over $300,000 in value. So I support the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Pettengill.
Yeah, thanks. I'm feeling a little bit torn. I'm not quite sure which way I'm going to go yet. I was a strong supporter of the park when it first went in and donated some money personally. Pre-COVID, my niece and nephew were here and they demanded we were at that skills park 3 times a day, I think, and there was a lot of tears when they left. I don't think they were so sad about not seeing us anymore, but it was the park and losing access to that. That was the thing that really upset them. So I definitely see the value in it, but I'm also conscious, in addition to this, I guess I understand that pavement may reduce the ongoing maintenance costs or the frequency of need, but I guess I'm a bit skeptical that there aren't going to be some somewhat significant ongoing maintenance needs, and I don't have a sense of what those are. And we also directed staff to look at best practices around pickleball, and I think it's not unreasonable to assume that might come back with some recommendations with a price tag. And so it feels a little bit like we're adding things to the budget while not technically including them into the budget. And I'm a bit worried about, it feels like if we want to spend this money, it feels like it should be in the budget somewhere. So yeah, I'm torn. I really like the project and see the leveraging and so on, but the sort of not putting things in the budget effectively, but not putting in the budget is a bit of a concern. So I'll listen to the rest of my colleagues maybe. Thanks.
I was going to say you were the last one with your hand up, Councillor Pettengill, but Councillor Stoner's put her hand up.
I will be supporting the motion. I think it's very fortunate that we haven't spent council contingency and we do have some carry forward. I'm also cognizant that we have shifted the budget process this year for the first time. And so I think SORCA is probably not the only organization in this position where we are operating on a different timeline. We're doing first 3 readings before the end of the year. So I also want to give a little bit of leeway to that reality in terms of recognizing that our volunteer organizations are trying their best to keep up with what's happening in Municipal Hall. And Municipal Hall is also trying our best to keep everybody appraised of what's going on, and sometimes wires get crossed. So I'm happy to have found an alternative way to fund this other than through taxation. And I think it is prudent that we are nimble as a government and able to do that sometimes so that we can leverage our municipal dollars with provincial funding and the hard work of volunteers to find more in-kind dollars as well. So I'll be supporting the motion.
Thank you. I think we have an example from last year's budget when we make last minute decisions that they come with consequences we might not anticipate. And that's the problem with last minute budget asks. And so I'm not really satisfied with the answer around the ongoing maintenance and operations and who's doing what. And I think that's the kind of information that councils need from our staff to make good decisions about how we spend money, even if it's leftover money from council contingency and surplus. And so that's a challenge for me. And we do have other requests that have come in at the last minute. So while we want to be nimble, we also want to be equitable and fair. And there's a number of the requests that have come in late in the budget process, which we can't entertain this year in the 2022 budget. So I will support the initiative because the grant's there, the in-kind support's there, it's a fully baked project, but I have outstanding questions around operations and support. And that's a big question related to the lawn bowling piece, is it comes with quite a substantial operational service level. So I just think we have to be really cautious. If this had, I wouldn't have supported this going into the 2022 budget, which is why I asked this morning about our contingency level, because I don't believe that we should change things at the last minute in a budget that's been through the public engagement process. So I count ourselves lucky that we have contingency to use in this case, but I don't think it's best practice. And I certainly would encourage all of our nonprofits to speak to their staff contacts about our budget process and the timing of that. Because even when we get a hint that there's something coming or where we have to be nimble potentially, more notice is better than no notice. And even in our past budgeting process, we would have been well into discussions of the capital and special operating projects budget by this time. So I don't think we've moved it tremendously, that staff shouldn't have been made aware several months ago that this project was in the works. So with that, I will call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. We still have a 2022 budget, which I didn't want sullied by anything else. So if there's any other motions that need to happen before we do 3 readings, and you don't get to speak again, Mr. Norman, but you're welcome. Have a good evening. Yeah. Any other comments, questions, motions before we put the main motion on the floor? Councillor Stoner.
I have one quick question. Last year in our budget process, staff came up with a really great figure about the percentage of the budget that was going to climate change adaptation mitigation projects. I realize this is a last minute off the cuff question, but I'm wondering if we have a similar figure for this year's budget.
I borrowed our CFO's binder so that I have all the secret papers, so I will attempt to find that. I believe we do.
It's okay. It's not entirely, I have some high level figures, so it's okay. Don't worry about it.
No, he's looking. I think he wants to use the secret binder. And Mr. Russell, we can always bring this back at adoption too. I don't think it changes the readings.
I don't have it in front of me, but I believe that we're looking at a number in the neighborhood of $8 to $10 million, which, given a $60 million capital plan, would put us at roughly, I think we're probably 15 to 20%, something in that neighborhood. And we will confirm and bring that figure back.
Thank you. Anything else, council? All right. Only thing to contemplate is first 2 readings of the 2022 to 2026 financial plan. Councilor Herford, you moving that? Is there a seconder? I'll second it. I'm seconding it. Any comments? Councilor Herford?
Thank you. I'd like to commend staff on the process, and I know there's also building council's familiarity with the process as we go through. But this year's process, the way it was presented, and the timeline that was adjusted forward, allows us to be here having this discussion today and not into the new year. Positions the district, as we all know, quite well to get a higher value and out of these projects, and hopefully to hit the ground running a little sooner in the season and help with our completion rate of funded projects. So I'm really excited to see this, and I appreciate all the hard work of staff to get us here, and my fellow council mates to work through all those complex situations to arrive here today with a plan that we can give the first 3 readings to. So thank you very much.
Councillor French.
So I'm sitting here contemplating, does the budget process get easier year after year? And my answer is no. It's a stressful process, or at least it was for me, and has been every year, because there's a lot at stake. And there's a lot at stake for people like seniors in our community and low-income individuals. The decisions we make at this table have a huge impact on the lives of Squamish residents. And despite my feelings of it doesn't get any easier, I do agree with Councillor Herford in that we've had excellent support from staff in putting all the materials together that we need to make the decision. And I want to acknowledge my council colleagues in making this process as stress-free as it could be. When I think about past budgets that I covered from the gallery as a journalist, there were hissy fits and there were tantrums and there was dialogue that wasn't constructive in putting together previous District of Squamish budgets. I've never experienced that because I work with a respectful group of people who have similar values to me and have a work ethic that doesn't involve temper tantrums. So thank you, council. Thank you, staff, for all the work that you have done in making this process the process that it was. So with all of that, I support the motion and look forward to the budget year ahead. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Race.
Thank you. This is my opportunity to throw a tantrum just to spoil Councillor French's night, but I won't. But I do want to, actually, I was going to say almost exactly the same thing Councillor Herford said about the budget process. And for me, in some senses, it does get simpler. The actual process of dealing with the budget and the format it was laid out for us, and the obvious amount, maybe to people in this room and maybe not so much to the public, but the obvious amount of work that staff do before it even gets to us to get rid of the fat and stick with the stuff that we really need and winnow it down to the point where it makes decisions a little bit easier for me and for others, I'm sure. So that is also a big part of it, and a big part of how we got to where we are today. And I sit and listen to the media about other municipalities dealing with higher numbers by significant amounts than 4%, which is what we are proposing to more or less increase taxation by. And I think we have done a very good job of keeping our budget in check and within reasonable parameters at a time where it's difficult to do that with growth, with climate change additions and items, and with inflation. And so I commend staff, I commend my fellow councillors for doing a good job and making it this far. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councillor Petco.
Yeah, I'm just going to say quickly, being a little bit superstitious, I'll save my comments for next week.
Ms. Glenday, there's a motion on the floor. Okay.
I'm just not sure, Mayor Elliott, if you saw that Councillor Stoner is off screen but did want to speak.
No, I hadn't seen that. Thank you. Councillor Stoner.
Thank you, CAO Glenday, for catching that. It is bedtime here and I am nursing my daughter. But, as many people know, I am technically on maternity leave, but I did feel like it was really important to participate in the budget discussions because it is where we set out our priorities, both for the coming year and for the 5-year financial plan. Like my fellow council colleagues, I want to commend the staff on the process. It has been, I think, the most seamless budget process that I've been involved in the last 3 years of our term. And although there was a lot of difficult weighing and balances that need to happen in all budget discussions, the way that it was presented, the difficult conversations that need to happen were able to be done smoothly because of the work that was done behind the scenes by staff. So thank you for that. And also to my fellow council colleagues for the work put in those discussions as well. I do want to just highlight some of the investments that I'm particularly proud of in this budget, and there are many, but the first is advancing the real estate and facilities master plan with funding allocation to the first 3 projects. They may not be the prettiest or the shiniest for Fire Hall number 1, 2 in the Public Works Yard, but it also sets in motion the discussions and trade-offs and opportunities about how we're going to fund everything else from Brennan Park, the library, City Hall. So I think that that is a big win in this budget. Although we don't have the exact number, Mr. Russell, I did find that we are almost at $6 million of investment for climate change adaptation and $1.5 million for climate change mitigation, which I think is extremely important given that we're in the middle of a climate emergency. And I also just want to highlight the actioning of the Affordable Housing Strategy or Society. I wasn't here for when we passed the bylaws for incorporating that society, but putting annual operating funding behind that this year is what is actually going to make that happen. So amongst everything else, I just wanted to highlight those particular pieces that I think we should be really proud of as a council, that we are moving forward all the investments that we need to keep the municipality running in the back end, the waters, the sewer, the garbage pickup, but we're also advancing those key priorities that we've heard from the community around affordable housing, around climate change, and so I'm happy to support first 3 readings of this budget.
Thank you. Definitely supporting first 3 readings, and I too am really proud that this budget incorporates our real estate and facility master plan investments over the next 5 years. That's been a lot of hard work, and while we have put placekeepers in the budget, those projects that are further out, there's still room for creativity and grants and other factors that will make it all possible. But it's good to know that we were able to accomplish our strategic plan goal a year before the end, almost, well, it's in the budget, and we'll be shovel ready on those 3 projects, one of them complete, another one well underway. So I think that's a testament to the hard work of our staff, and also council's focus on making sure the RAFMP plan did get incorporated. To me, making sure that we adopt the budget before the end of the year isn't just about an arbitrary time frame. This has been something that I've been interested in since I joined council. And the reasons for me is that without missing any steps, and in fact, adding another public engagement opportunity, we did one night specifically on the real estate and facilities master plan, and then another one on the budget as a whole. But we followed all of our steps. We still get to a point where we can adopt the agenda before the end of the year. And that allows our procurement to begin January 1, which means our documents and bids can be out in the market early, which gives us an opportunity to have more strategic bidding and more competitive bidding, which helps with our planning and our financial planning. I think too, it gives our staff a whole year, 12 months of runway to complete their projects, which they haven't had before. They've had to wait until the end of the first quarter almost in order to get approval on the budget and get going. So this is about making local government more effective and more efficient. And I want to really thank our finance staff and all of our budget managers for helping us make that happen. I think that will make a huge difference to us over the long term. So with that, call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mr. Russell.
Thank you, Council.
All right, there's one more little nitpicky item here. And I'll have Ms. Pollock just speak to why the floodplain management bylaw is back on our agenda this evening for first 3 readings.
Good evening, Council. My name is Charlene Pollock. I'm the Manager of Legislative Services and here to talk to you today about the District of Squamish Floodplain Management Bylaws 2751 Amendment Bylaw 2880. So last week it was discovered that the schedules for the floodplain management bylaw were not included with the agenda package when the bylaw went for adoption. The schedules were included at first 3 readings, but it is a requirement that schedules be included with a bylaw at all readings. So just to note, the bylaw itself has not changed, nor have the schedules that were included at first 3 readings changed. So the proposed amendment in front of you will add the schedules to the bylaw. Mr. Rolston is available if there are any questions related to the floodplain bylaw. And the staff recommendation in front of you is for first 3 readings of the bylaw amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pollock. Are you moving that? No. Councillor Herford.
Thank you. I'm curious, do we not have to rescind the readings that we gave without the, because we were at adoption without the attached? I just want to make sure that we're taking the right steps to get where we need to be.
Through the chair, no, this can be done through an amendment to the bylaw. So it doesn't affect the original bylaw. It's just an amendment adding the schedules.
Councillor Race, are you moving that?
Yes, I am.
Seconded by Councillor French. You're out of the running. I'm sorry, Councillor Herford. Any further comments? Councillor Anderson.
Yes, I'd just like to make a brief comment on one of the aspects of what is before us, and that is the amendment to allow underground parkades and garages below the groundwater table subject to receiving a groundwater management plan, which is now defined in the bylaw. Later in the report, there's the context that is emphasized for this is higher density areas of the community, that is for housing projects. But I would just suggest that it's not only relevant for higher density areas or for housing projects. This provision could be a deal breaker or enabler for potentially other, say, commercial or institutional or even community facility projects from being able to happen in our difficult flood-prone terrain. So this is a very valuable amendment, and it'll be important, I think, for potentially diverse building projects. Thank you.
Seeing no other hands, I'll call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to terminate. Moved by Councillor Stoner and seconded by Councillor Race. Any opposed? Councillor Herford opposes. Motion carries. Thanks, everyone. Thank you to the staff who supported us all day. It's been a very long day, and we appreciate all your support and help. And thank you, Council. It's always a pleasure working with you. Good night.
Thanks,
Right.
everybody.
Thank you.